In this week's episode, I answer 3 controversial questions. Hi and welcome to episode 26 of Business Greenhouse TV. 26 marks 6 months that we've been doing this show, and time flies, but we've covered a lot of ground in that time. Literally just back from Melbourne, just went and had to do a couple of talks down there on a kingdom economy. So it was a great conference put on by the Christian Federation, where they brought people from the 7 mountains or the 10 domains together. So I was talking on the business stream, specifically on how do we use businesses for finance and influence to create the kingdom economy. So that was excellent. In this week's episode, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to answer only private questions. These are some serious questions that people don't want to ask publicly because they're a bit controversial perhaps. And I'm just going to do 3 of those, no word of the week, just 3 controversial, down and dirty questions. So Michelle, what's our first question today?
I'm working with a family member who is underperforming. How do I performance manage/fire them?
Great question. So we've got a family member who's underperforming. What's the process to manage the situation? This is so sensitive. Like if you've ever run a family business or you're part of one, you know what it's like when somebody's not living up to their A-team, So how do you do this process? It's inevitable in a family business that at some stage you're going to have to go through this, And it's usually the problem comes when the founder, has to let go to the next generation. And that's where the friction usually happens. I mean, it can happen outside of that, but that's usually where it happens. Founder wants out, they want to go fishing, they want to have some time to themselves, but they don't really want to let control go because maybe the next generation, there's usually this thing of it was tough for me and I don't just want to give it to you and all this sort of stuff. So let's just talk into that a little bit. How do you do the process? I think first and foremost, because it's family, you've got to go through, you've got to give it time to write itself, okay? You can't just be like, you're fired, it's out, The family barbecue is going to be a little interesting if you go down that route. I think you've got to go to the person that's not performing and the rest of the family members go to them and say, hey, listen, here is our concern. Like communication is going to be vital through this process. Here is our concern. And I think the best thing you can do is everybody, not just the person that's underperforming, but everybody agrees to go through a process of average to awesome. Everybody does. So you're rewriting the position description for every family member in the business. You're setting a series of KPIs moving forward over 1 week, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 weeks, 90 days perhaps, of what every single person is going to do to get to the goal where everybody's performing again, okay? And then what happens by going through that process and reporting back week on week, how's Billy going compared to what he said? How's Mary going to what he said? She said, like going through that process, what will happen in time is it'll shine a big spotlight on the underperformers. And if it's the same, like if the person that was underperforming originally is still underperforming, it makes it very easy to say, you're not living up to the standard you agreed to, now we've got to move you out, okay? So stage 1 is to highlight the fact that they get it. They've got to understand that they're not living up to the expectation of everybody else. And then once they realize through that process, then you can go to them and say, okay, what's our process to get you out? Do you go now? Do you go later? Do we get some money in to pay you out? Do you go back to less days of the week and less control? And then, okay, so once you've got to the point where that person is happy to start the exit, then you've got to get whoever's next to be, the public face to do some sort of gathering where you get the team together and you do a handover where this person then becomes the CEO or the person running the show. And you need to do it quickly so that this person can't weave their way back in and try and take control because the team won't know who to go to. So the minute you've gone through the process, they realize how bad it is. They're happy to go through a process to get out. You've got to reinstate the new leader, and that all has to happen quite quickly. And then you just manage that person. Now, it's interesting. You're going to have to probably hustle and tussle a little bit to get them out. But once you've reinstated someone, they really realize that there's no going back from that point because it's public now. Everybody knows, and they'll leave. Okay, but it's very, very sensitive. At all times, if it's a family business, at all times, it must be done with dignity and respect. Every bit of communication has to be done even when you don't want to, even when it's frustrating. It's very easy to lose your cool at your family because they're your family. You can't afford to in this process. If it gets heated, walk away, come back and visit it the next day or a week later or whatever you want to do. But do not lose the dignity and respect for the process, because it'll just end up being, it'll affect the family down the line, and it's just not worth it, okay? So make sure that there's an honor in the way that we're speaking to everybody all the time, and you might want to put those rules of the game up front with everybody, saying this is our code of how we're going to communicate through this process. Very good question, very touchy question, and if you're going to build a business of significance and use your family, you will be going through this. Michelle, what's our second question?
Hi Wes, my biggest client have been a strong supporter of my business for the last 5 years. Now their main competitor has approached me and wants me to work exclusively for them. What do I do?
Cool, so you're working, everything's going well, but the competitor wants to headhunt you. Well, I think loyalty is dying in the current economy, everything based on mammon, this greed and corrupt society that we've created. Loyalty is missing, and I think it's up to us to bring it back. I think it's a clear-cut case if you go straight back to your current employer and you go, hey, listen, to your customer, this is what's going on. This is what's going on inside my world. They've offered me this. Play it out with them. Give them a chance to understand it, to come back to you, whatever. Like, give them a chance. Say to them, listen, I don't want to jump ship, but I'm just letting you know what's going on. They may become a better customer, whatever, however that plays out. And then you can make a decision. But if you ever do make the decision to leave that and go to this other person, give them heaps of time, heaps of notice, and do your very, very best until the very last hour of of that relationship, okay? Don't be jumping out and just going, oh, here's a better offer and God's going to bless me with more money. And there's no right way to do the wrong thing. So just go through the process of honoring them in that way, communicating with them, and you may find that they really appreciate the loyalty of you going to them, and then you end up better with them anyway, okay? I don't think we want to be hasty, to be jumping, progressing and trying to chase stuff. Just do the right thing, and you'll watch God honor the process. I'm sure you'll end up better off. Michelle, what is question number 3?
I've been happily tithing to my church for many years. Lately, I haven't been bothering as I'm not sure our pastor is doing the right thing. Am I wrong?
Okay, so this is a tithing question. So you've been tithing for a long time to your church, then you're not sure how the pastor's going. So you haven't been tithing for a little while because you're not sure. Are you wrong? Yes and no. There's too many details in there for me to make that close-cut call. But, however, giving is of the heart. Okay, so we always need to be generous. Okay, we always need to find ways to fund our spiritual covering to make sure it's strong. If you're not convinced that the pastor's doing the right thing, the first thing we need to be doing is asking for a meeting. Pastors these days are under so much pressure to juggle. They've got 70,000 balls in the air and they're juggling. They may not be thinking, I wonder what you're thinking. You've just got to go to them and say, listen, can I have a meeting with you? And then when you have a meeting, just say, here's my concern about what's going on, and deliver it tactfully and in love, and have that conversation. Now, there might be something that you have no idea about that's going on that explains, what triggered you to be, questioning the stewardship of the pastor. There may be something full on legit, but you weren't involved in it, therefore you don't know. And if you didn't know that, that would be a sad case. So you can go and find that information. If at the end of that meeting, you're even more convinced, right, that the pastor is not doing the right thing, then, there are avenues. You can go back and say, I don't think you're doing the wrong thing. Or if that doesn't work, if there's an oversight in the denomination, you can go to them if you want. There's all of that stuff. My concern is these people that are church hopping all the time, in and out of this one. I don't get what I want over here. I go there for 6 months and I go to this one. I didn't get what I want over there, And it's not about what we want, okay? There's a process. So I understand if a pastor's doing the wrong thing, if it's really bad and there's no way and he or she doesn't get it and is never going to change, awesome. That's grounds to move. But if it's just because there's a little bit of friction, awesome. That's when relationships are formed, if you can go through the friction to become, closer friends. So go and have that meeting. But they've got a big job, okay? And they need to be well funded. And you as an entrepreneur, you need the spiritual covering of your local church, okay? Yes, Jesus is our ultimate intercessor. He goes to God and intercedes on our behalf. but we need a local covering, in my opinion, okay? So in my world, I've got a great relationship with my pastor, and he knows where I go all the time. He knows what we're doing. He's praying for us. We have meetings. He prays for us. Like, I have a spiritual covering when I go to the marketplace. When I go to the marketplace, I win, and I bring some of those spoils back into church to create Exodus 17:12, which is, remember, when Joshua is at war, Moses is raising his arms, Aaron and Hur prop him up and help him. And that's the marketplace and the church working together. We need to create that in our own world. So don't let something get in the way of you not being able to fund your spiritual covering, okay? You need to be able to do that so that they're praying for you. Now, if you go to a church and your pastor doesn't understand business, that's okay. You need to go and educate him on the journey. You can fast forward him, Business Greenhouse TV, and he might watch a couple and kind of grasp it, something like that. There's a million resources out there. I'd be going to my pastor if he doesn't understand and just say, listen, will you stand with me? Will you pray for me in my business? And most pastors will go through that process. Some I hear basically just say, no, I don't get it, and I'm never going to pray, and how could I possibly pray for my business people? There's too many of them, or something like that. That's going to be a challenge for you to achieve this goal. That's when you might start to think, okay, well, then maybe there's a church that's got a better grace on it for entrepreneurs if they're never going to get it. But you might have to stay and educate them, okay? That way, you get that relationship. But coming back to the point of you haven't been tithing because you're not sure, how long do you run that race before you find out what's really going on? Get in there, get a meeting, and say your concerns to the pastor before you check out, before we start gossiping behind the scenes about it. Go to the pastor. Give them the honor, which is propped up in the last 3 questions. Give them the honor of saying, here's my concern. And he might go, yeah, okay, true, like I haven't communicated, but this is where all our money's been going because this has been a big need. And you go, awesome. Now let me get back on the bandwagon. I'm going to keep funding you because that is a really good thing, okay? But you've got to know the whole picture before you make a decision if I'm going to leave or I'm going to do something like this, okay? So get in there. Pastors have a horrific job of juggling so much. Our job as entrepreneurs is to get active, to get out there, to go and make money in the marketplace and bring some back to our church so that they're well funded. So when we're not tithing, we're not completing the circle. You need to go back to your pastor, find out why, find out what's going on in his world, find out his heart. If he doesn't get it and he's doing the wrong thing, great, go find somewhere else. But give him the chance first, or her the chance first, to find out what's going on, because I'm sure they're not telling us all everything. They're juggling too much, okay? But go back first. And then as soon as you've fixed it, get back in there, start giving to church, start funding it, start funding the programs, and watch that symbiotic relationship unfold where you're covered in the marketplace, you win because you've got a spiritual covering, you bring the spoils back, and church prospers. Solid episode. There's some interesting stuff in there, and I'm pumped. Like so here we are. We're about to embark on our 3 summits. We've got Sydney this week. We've got Perth the week after. Gold Coast the week after. If you're coming, I can't wait to see you. If I've never met you, come and say g'day. I want to meet you. That'll be just be so much fun these next 3 weeks. A lot of work, but a lot of fun, and just be great to meet you there. So have an awesome week. I'll catch up with you soon. Bye for now.